one is you can click on this letter T. That's your text tool. If you click and hold down the mouse, there'll be a secondary toolbar. The capital T is the text on the work surface so that you can see it as you're doing it. Text entry is a dialog box where you see just regular text, and then you select the font style and it shows you once you've left the dialog box. And then small text is for when you're using really small point text, like you want to do 6-point text kind of stuff. So if the regular text tool works just fine, you can go in, type in whatever it is you want for text. This little black arrow right here is the selection tool. That allows you to select items. You have a whole bunch of different colors on the palettes on the side. If you look at the palette at the top, the painter's palette is the foils for the Gerber Edge. The CMYK one is your 4-color process foils for the edge. So we can print with either CMYK or spot colors. Most customers that have a Gerber Edge will print with spot colors. The easiest one to use is black.
Yeah.
It's right at the top. So what I'll usually do is draw a box, add in some text, move the text on top of the box, fill it in as black. You can go to the view menu to see this in either wireframe or filled mode. Right now we happen to be in filled mode. We go to wireframe, we're going to see some different line colors. So right here, black indicates that that is a shape that's being cut. So any lines that are black are going to be cut out. Any lines that are green are going to be print and cut. So if I click on this, we can see down at the bottom we've assigned a fill of 100% black. If I click on a different color here, you'll now see it's going to be 100% apple green. And then I'll choose blue just to make things easier here. So you see that that's now a green line on there. If I go and draw a circle, I can click on the circle tool and I'll just draw a quick circle here. And I'm going to assign that a different color. We'll do this purple. But you'll see that the line is red. That means that it is a print-only shape. So the 3 colors that we have is black is cut, red is print, green is print and cut. So if I was sending this job to the Gerber Edge, it would print the circle and it would print the text atom. It would not print the box. When I sent this over to the plotter, it would cut out the box and it would cut out the word atom. It would not cut the red circle because that is a print-only shape. Let's see. If you ever wonder or forget what all this stuff is, because it'll probably be a couple weeks before you see the software again, at least, you can go to Wireframe Legend, and it'll tell you what all the actual colors are. So cut color is black, print color is red, print color is green, and then vinyl colors and all the other different dashed lines when you're doing different stuff. But that gets into more advanced things. Shouldn't have to worry about those. Any questions so far?
No.
All right. Let me just check my messages here real quick. Okay. If I want to change something to a cut, I can click on it. I can then go to the Arrange menu, and we have the option for Cut On, if we want to turn cuts on for an object. So now that I've done that, that red shape now changed. It's now a green shape because it's going to be printed and cut. Likewise, if I wanted to turn the cuts off for my text, go back to Arrange, and now I have the option for cuts off because it currently has them on. So that's going to change that to what color? Anybody know? Pop quiz. I turn the cuts off. What's it going to be?
Red. Red. Red.
Oh, I think you're
Red.
You are correct. It changes it to red. All right, you're paying attention. I'm not too boring today. That's good. That's good. So those are just real basic things, because a lot of times as a tech, you need to install the software and then show the customer that their equipment is actually working. So it is good to know how to create a box, how to assign a fill, how to assign a cut shape to the objects. So right now we have the black box is cut. The green circle is going to be printed as light purple and then cut. And then my text is going to be just my name printed in the blue. And if I want to see this all filled in, I can go to View, and then go to the filled mode, and there it shows us what that's going to look like. So the nice thing about the Gerber system is that we can print onto white vinyl. We can also print onto red vinyl, or any color in between. And our foils will actually print on top of those materials. So if I had this as cobalt blue, and I can go and change that. This is a fill dialog box. So if you like to find colors by name, you can go into the little fill bucket. That's a paint bucket looking thing. And now you have a list of all the Gerber colors by name. So if I wanted cobalt blue specifically, that's the foil that the customer actually purchased or has in stock, I can assign that. And I could technically print this on top of yellow vinyl, and this would stay as blue. So it would print blue on top of yellow. However, if I used our transparent blue, that would then be blue on top of yellow vinyl, and it would turn green. Yellow and blue make green.
Yeah.
So different foils will react differently on different materials based on color. So this one right here, this is light purple. If I printed this on yellow vinyl, it's not going to be light purple. It's going to change to a different color. So I can change the substrate that I'm printing on by all the colors at the bottom of the screen. These are our vinyl colors. So I'm going to say probably 70% of the customers will print on white most of the time. And then everybody else will do stuff like they have a logo that's yellow and blue. They'll print on yellow vinyl with a blue foil. Whereas in the inkjet world, you just print yellow and print blue on white vinyl always. So that's one of those things that can make the edge much more attractive for output, is that you can use actual yellow vinyl and print just the blue. So you're only using one foil, and you get a very bright, vibrant blue that is going to stand up and is outdoor durable for up to 5 years without a lamination. Especially in the UK where it rains all the time. How's your summer been this year? Has it been pretty wet over there or not?
It's been changeable. It's been pretty hot up to this point, but it's definitely turned now. It's been an okay summer.
Excellent.
You see?
Ours has been very, very rainy.
Okay.
And it feels like every trip I've ever made over to the UK, it rains every day.
They're inviting you at the wrong time.
Yes, always. Lou loves to have me over when it's bad weather. It's
Yeah.
always raining.
It always rains in Bristol.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
That's where I go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes they're nice, and we get to go down to London or up to Manchester. But
Well, you can well, we're not far from London. You can come here.
Are you?
Yeah.
Where are you guys out of?
We're in Luton, which is about 25
Okay, yep.
25 miles north.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yep, I remember driving through it once before.
Yeah, it's kind of intersection of motorways.
Yep. So once we've designed something to output, you can either select all of everything, just kind of rubber band selection, and it'll highlight it. At the bottom of the screen, it does give you your height and your length. The system will base off of either metric or US standard English, based on what Windows is set up as. So you have Windows set to metric, all of the Omega software will be in metric. You can also go change it by double-clicking on the rulers, and you can change it to inches or miles, meters, centimeters, whatever you want to change it to. The size of the rulers, you can adjust how big or small the rulers are. So I can change that to millimeters. And now our settings are in millimeters, so you can see what it is. It's a more realistic size. Once you've designed something, it's going to fit on the material you're going to actually print on. We would then go to save. So you want to save the design, obviously. It's always a good thing to do. Customer can put their files anywhere they want. The default directory is the jobs folder. The default file type for Gerber is PLT. That is different than the HPGL PLT. It is a Gerber proprietary format. Stands for Gerber plot file. There are different versions of the Gerber plot file based on the version of software you're using. For each version of Omega, we added new features, so there became a new version. All of the Omega 8 can open everything that came before it. However, if a customer has Omega 4, they can't open an Omega 8 file. So it would have to be back saved, so save as an older version.
Yeah.
Hopefully you don't run into that too much and just tell the customer they need to upgrade all their software. Spend more money. That always goes well with customers. You can save a description, customer name, and or keywords so the customer can find information later on. This is a newer feature in the Omega software that allows you to have searchable text, not just the file name to find stuff. Some customers will use a customer number or a job number, quote number, invoice number as ways to finding their files later on. But that's how you save the file. If you did want to output this, send this out to Adobe or out to an inkjet, you can save as an EPS, AI file, PDF. You got a whole bunch of different options. But PLT is the default. So we'll save that. And if we're ready to output, make sure our equipment is running correctly. We would go to File and then go to either Output All or Output Selected. So selected is whatever you have highlighted. Output All does everything in the file. You can also do output by vinyl. So if it's a shop that only does cut vinyl, they could design in colors. You know, we could do a purple vinyl, a blue vinyl, and a white vinyl. And they could output by each individual color, so all the objects that are that color. Or if they're designing with layers, you can output by layers. So some people will design mock-ups of a sign on a storefront. So they may have a layer that is a picture of the storefront, a layer that is the sign frame, and then a layer that's actually the cut vinyl that's going to be produced. So they'd only want to output the layer that has the actual production information on it.
Yeah.
So in this case, you're doing an install. You designed the file with a box, some line of text, and a shape. You assign 2 colors to it. We're going to do output all. That is then going up to open up the Gerber Omega Plot software. Think of that as RIP software. This is what processes the file to actually be sent to the Gerber Edge and or Gerber plotters, or any plotter for that matter. So this is the Omega Plot software. This is the output screen essentially that's going to physically send the data to the equipment. Things of interest in here, if they're showing the layer view, it'll show you the vinyl that's selected. So in this case, it is white Gerber 220 vinyl. That's our high performance vinyl made by 3M. It is going to use the light purple foil and the cobalt blue foil. So those are physical cartridges that we put into the Gerber Edge to print. I'll see if I can find a video on the Edge printing so you can see what that thing actually looks like, so you're slightly familiar with the devices. One of these layers should have a target. That's a little crosshair that's going to be printed. Our print to cut alignment is done with a little bomb sight. It's one of these little guys. So when you actually print the job, it creates a target, and then you're going to use this little bomb sight to actually move the plotter over it and line it up manually. On the low-end plotters, that's how it's done. On the high-end plotter, the Envision plotter, there's actually a calibration that can be done so you don't have to use that. And it uses the home position of the equipment to get to that location. This little device here with a little eye on it, that gets you to your plotter printer selection. So this lists off all the plotters that I currently have installed. In your case, when you're doing a new install, you're probably going to have 1, maybe 2 plotters. Most sign shops will have a 15-inch Gerber plotter, and then maybe a 24-inch or 48-inch friction plotter, Graphtec, Mamaki, whatever. So you'd select that plotter. So if it was an Envision 375 you installed, you'd select that, and the edge that you're going to output to, whether it's an Edge 1 or 2 or the Edge FX. And if you didn't have any installed, if you skip that step during the installation, the software would come up and bark at you, no output equipment installed, and it would come up with those install dialog boxes to install them. If a customer adds a new device and they want to set it up in the Omega software, this is where you would do it after the installation of the software has happened. For a plotter, that's the install button at the top. So again, you just click on install. I'll see which screen this is going to come up to. There we go. And then we go and we find the plotter that we actually want to install. So if it was the, Suma S75, and it's going to connect via USB, you then hit add, and then that would add that plotter in. And as long as it's HPGL, that should work absolutely fine. if the plotter is not listed, so for example, the Suma S3s are not in the software at this point, or the Suma S2s for that matter, you can go in and install what's called an HPGL plotter. So we do have a bunch of different HPGL plotters. So these are just basic drivers for each of the plotters. So usually it's going to be HPGL Simple or Smart. It may be the PD, page display. But generally go with the Smart or Simple, installed on a port, and then see what that does from there. So it will come up and ask you for some basic information. The step size, which you can get from the plotter manual and the specifications. X dimension, which is usually length, is usually unlimited, so you leave that at 0. And then Y dimension is going to be the actual width of what that plotter can physically do for cutting area. So whether that's 300, 600, whatever the value needs to be.
Yeah.
And then you can name it. So if you're installing a, Joe Blow's plotter, you can name it Joe Blow's plotter. It doesn't matter what the name is. Usually I'll do a name and then put HPGL at the end of it, just so you know that it's one that you installed, not one that Gerber supplied as a default. So we'll just call this one test. So that's how you'd install a plotter. If you have a plotter that's installed and you no longer want it or need it, or it's confusing things because you installed a bunch of them on different ports, you can go through the list, find the one that you don't want, and hit delete. It asks you if you want to delete it. It does tell you that that plotter will remain in the list until you restart the Gerber software. So that is important to note that once you delete it, you do have to restart to actually have that disappear from the list of output devices. So once we have equipment selected, we're all happy, everything looks good. The output buttons are this one right here. This is print. So this little icon here is to print. So that'll send the job to the Gerber Edge. Let's click on that right now. It won't work, but we'll do it. And then the to cut is this button here. The one in the middle is to pen plot. So a lot of the Gerber plotters have the option to load a pen in them and just do a pen plot on like paper. That's commonly used for neon or LED designs or for paint masks. But 90% of the time it's going to be print and cut. And when you click on the print and the cut, it will open up a third program, which is our Queue Manager, and that is called Gerber GQ MGR. This will show all of your devices and any jobs being output to them. I currently do not have my plotter turned on, so it is giving me a communication error. And it gives me the option to terminate or restart. So first thing I would check, make sure your plotter is physically turned on and that you have the USB cable connected to your computer and the serial cable connected to that, then connected to the plotter. Common mistake is you connect the USB to serial adapter, you forget to plug in the serial cable going to the actual plotter. Thus it says I can't communicate, or it just sends it, but nothing shows up on the plotter. So always double check that you actually have all the cables connected to the device. Sounds simple, but with all the other stuff you got going on in an install, it's a common one to forget to do. If it is an error, it's now going to COM 6, but I know that I installed that USB device on COM 3. That means something got mixed up during my installation. I need to go and change that port that's on. So I'm going to terminate that. The job to the Gerber Edge FX is still looking for the network connection. I don't have it on the network right now, so it's going to sit there and wait until it shows up. It won't time out for quite a while. If you need to cancel a job, you can hit on the X, and it'll come up and say you want to terminate it. The job is then terminated. For the Edge FX, it is a network device, so you can do a right-click on it and go to Properties. And I forget if this shows up if I actually have it on the network or not. Yes, it does not. Any rate, you can physically type in the IP address on a web browser, and it would go to the internal web page on the Edge FX, and that would give you information, another way to know that you're actually connecting to the right device and your network is working. For the plotters, when you go to Properties, this is where you could change the COM port that it's on. This is changing what the software is sending to, not what the USB to serial adapter is displayed as in Device Manager. So if you change it to COM3 in Device Manager, you would need to come in and change the COM port in the Q Manager as well, or reinstall the plotter on the correct port. For the GraphTech plotters, let's see, there's one of the recipes. You do have the USB information, so typically the first time you output, it'll ask you to select the connected device. So you'll need to select the correct USB VID and PID information for that device. So right now I don't have it installed, but you would have to select the GraphTech that was actually on there, or whatever those settings were. So up top here you can see what I previously had. I had GraphTech 3000, the VID was blah, blah, blah. You just select that from the list at the bottom. So that's how it knows what it's physically sending to. And it only asks you that the first time you connect it. If you change the plotter, do service on the plotter, replace the main board in the plotter, that VID information may change. So if they get service on their equipment, they may need to go into this and change that information to output again. Generally not something you have to deal with during install, but if the customers had work done and it worked before, now it doesn't work with the new software. Oh, and I just had the plotter's main board replaced. Okay. The story always thickens. So that's the Gerber GQ Manager, Gerber Plot Software. General other buttons that you may need to go into in here, the 1, 2, 3 button, that gives you your print options. This is where you can choose the mode that the EdgeFX prints in, whether it's 300 by 300, 300 by 600, or 1200 by 300. Those are the 3 different modes that we print in. When you change these, you will notice that the speeds change. So this is inches per minute. 300 by 300 is obviously the fastest. 1200 is going to drop that down to 15. It's the slowest. So the EdgeFX will print anywhere from 10 inches per minute all the way up to 60 inches per minute, depending on the color and the vinyl that's used. So each material is calibrated and profiled. And that's essentially what you're selecting in here is the profile, comparing it to an inkjet. If the customer is not printing on 220 vinyl, instead they loaded Avery, for example, you can select that and go to Substitute and Vinyl, and then you'd want to select the material that they're actually loading into the machine. So if they're loading Avery 700, you would select that, and now that knows what settings to use for those foils and materials. So material selection is important with the Gerber software when outputting to get good results. There are no new Gerber plotters or equipment being sold, so you're not going to run into any new equipment. You're going to run into existing equipment, or if the customer buys used equipment. So hopefully the customer is familiar with all this. You shouldn't have to go into any great detail on this, but it's a good thing to know how to do. If you output and you get poor results, check what the vinyl is and what they physically handed you for a roll of material. All of the Gerber material, is going to be the 15-inch punched material. You have that punching on the side. That's how it goes through the equipment. And on the inside of the core tube, you probably can't see it, but there is going to be a sticker on the inside.
Yeah.
And for the Gerber software, that'll tell you what the material actually is. So this is actually our shiny silver, and this is called label stock 1 mil brushed. So if that was the material that the customer handed you to print on, we would substitute the vinyl, and we'd look for the Gerber label stock in the list, 1 mil brushed. So we'd select that as the substrate we're going to print on. So that's important, especially if you're using any of the specialty materials, like the Gerber Lex Edge, magnetic, holographic, glow in the dark, reflective, all those kind of stuff. The settings make a really big difference for output. Like, it either prints well or prints like absolute garbage.
Yeah.
So generally we tell customers default to using a Gerber product for troubleshooting. If they don't have a Gerber product, use something that Spandex actually sells and there's a profile for. Using unknown materials that don't show up in the list, you could be getting hit or miss. Some of them work, some of them don't.
Yeah.
So they should have, the Gerber stuff, the Image Perfect materials that Spandex sells, MacTac, Scotch Cal, and definitely 3M products. So all the 3M materials are in there. And again, if it's Gerber materials or sold by Spandex, it should have a label on the core of the tube telling you what it is. There are a couple other things that can help with output and troubleshooting things, and that's the output job settings and invert warm-up bar. I recommend turning these on by default, and I believe in Omega 8 they are on by default. This will print a physical black bar or a colored bar at the beginning of the job that has all the information about the file, what the vinyl is, what the software version was, how many repeats were in the job, things like that. And that makes it much easier to work with the file and know what's actually going on. So that's the print options screen. We won't go into the advanced stuff of what all the other options are in here, but if you have questions on it, you can always hit Shift F1. That'll give you the help section that'll tell you what that functionality is. So changing print mode, I can click on that. It'll show me what it means, what the options are, what all those things stand for. It'll give you dialog boxes that show you what that stuff looks like. Majority of the functions are in the software, and you can also click on this little button here. This is a pointer with a question mark on it. So if you're wondering what this button here does, you can't find that one. So there are some new functions that are not in the software. And I do that on purpose because it is frustrating that they still haven't added that help section in there. But the button here, we go and we click on it. We want to know what this button actually is that I told you to click on to output to the edge. Are you kidding? What? Oh, it's on the other screen. So there is a video for outputting a job that does take you to the link. Open and closing plot, setting up the plot window, job information, shows you what those are, gives you other topics to talk about, which one, let's see, setting up the window, changing the rulers. So it actually is a helpful help file. If I want to know about the tools, I can bring up the tools, and it goes into all the different sections of what that is. Cutting and plotting and pouncing jobs. So if I want to learn about that, multiple vinyls, shows the dialog boxes with vinyl colors. So you can also search this dialog box and all the help files and what all those things are. So there's a lot of subjects here.
Wow.
Same thing is true if we go back into the Omega software. There is the help cursor right up here in the top, or Shift F1. If I want to know what something is, I can even go into menus, go to tools, and there's a function called medial access. No clue what that is. Never use it. Go in there, and it shows us what it is. It actually will give us an illustration of what that is, what it looks like. So medial access actually is an option that will add these facets, these lines on the inside of the shape, giving more detailed information on the actual design for doing more intricate design. So like adding shading and shadowing around letters and such that are vector based. And or adding like a border that has shadowing around it, so it adds the facets for that. So that's the help file if you get stuck on something and you can't get a hold of me because I'm about 6 hours behind you guys.
Yeah.
Other functions in the software, let's see, you can go to the help file. About Composer will tell you what version of software they're currently running. Version 8.0037 is the current release. If they don't have that version, you're on site, they have an older seat or something, you can always go to the help and check for updates. The updates will be for the version they have. So if they have 8.0, they'll get all the updates for 8.0. So 8.00 and whatever the numbers are. So if they're less than 37, they should update.
Yeah.
If they have an older version of software, Omega 7, it would only update for Omega 7. So 7057, I think, was where we were last. Let's see. That's the basics of the software. I don't know what else you guys want to go into.
We got, so you say there's some YouTube videos of it actually printing and what it's doing in terms of loading the vinyl in and things like that.
Yep, excellent. So you've at least seen the machines then?
No.
In the videos?
No.
Oh, you haven't watched the videos yet?
No.
Okay.
And we've seen them. I've seen them on site because they're installed in most customers that we go to. So, you know, but in terms of playing with them, we haven't had the opportunity to do that.
Gotcha. All right. So here is a video. Do you guys see the Gerber Edge?
Yeah.
So here's a video. This is the Gerber Edge FX. Obviously, it says Edge FX on the front of it. Easy way to determine what it is. We have had, I think it's 3 or 4 different versions of this. So you may see ones that have a red color on the cover or a blue color and light gray on the bottom. So there's been some different variations. The guts of the machine are all the same, just different firmware and different releases. Like Spandex, we did an anniversary edition that was all red, and that was only sold in Europe. But the last version was this dark gray color. So you have a little control panel here with F1 buttons. It's F1, F2, F3, F4, and arrow keys to move the vinyl forward and back in the machine. Again, it's a thermal printer, so it uses heat and pressure to bond a thermal resin ribbon to a substrate. In this case, it's going to be high-performance vinyl. You can see the label on the inside of the core telling us what that material actually is. The other thing of importance there is usually a white sticker or a colored sticker with a date and lot code on it of how old that material actually is. Right now, this display here has an optional rewinder system. So there is actually mechanical winder and rewinder on both sides. That's an optional thing that customers can purchase. We do still sell those, so if anybody's interested in it, we can get them those machines. Okay. Otherwise, typically you'll just have a dummy roll holder that the vinyl just spins off of.
Yeah.
So normally when you send a job to the Edge, it'll show up on the Edge FX. If you can read this, it'll probably say offline. And then when you hit, you'll need to hit F1 to put it online. And then it'll come up and actually ask you for the vinyl color. So it'll say white 220 in this case. And then you'll hit OK, and then it'll ask you for the foil. And so you'll have to have the foil in there, and then it'll actually start printing. And I don't think we have sound in this video. Yeah. So you can see here that it's started printing. It actually starts coming out on the left side as you're looking at the keypad. The supply side is on the right. This is printing sort of a reddish-orange decal, depending on your monitor resolution and colors and how this translates over the internet. But it'll print as soon as it comes out of the machine. It is dry to the touch. Again, it's thermal resin ribbon, so there's no ink, there's no stink. It's immediately ready to be used. So you don't have to worry about it touching anything or grabbing stuff or having any problems with it, folding over on itself. The winder obviously makes it really easy. It winds it up, but if you didn't have that, it would just dump out onto the table. And the only thing you have to be aware of when it dumps out on the table is if you have a dusty table, the vinyl is going to pick up all that dust, bring it back through the printer, and your next print is going to have a bunch of little specks and dots in it. So generally tell customers to use a Swiffer duster or rag to clean off their area and have the vinyl fall out smoothly across their table rather than curling up on top of it and dragging across. Once the Edge prints the first color, if it's a multicolor job, it'll then automatically rewind the vinyl, and then it'll ask you for the second color, which I think this video actually does. So at that point, the cartridges are refillable on the Edge FX. They are replaceable on an Edge 1 or an Edge 2. On the Edge FX, they load from the side, so it is actually going to be the left side as we're looking at it here. The cartridge will actually slide in. There's a mechanism on the side here. I'll see if I can find a job with a photo in it, but you should be able to see it here in a minute. Let's jump in here. So once it finishes printing, it'll then start rewinding. If you've got the winders, it's all very well self-contained. If you don't have the winders, it's just going to dump back on the table onto the right side of the mess of stuff. Again, any dust or debris that collects on that side of the table is going to get picked up.
Yeah.
Over here, this is where you can see this is the caddy that the foil comes in. These are refillable with just the ribbons themselves on the Edge FX. They slide out just like an old VHS tape, which I think most of us are old enough to remember what that is. There's a little door flapper there, and then here's a new color. We're dropping into black. Let's see if I can get this back just a little bit. There is a label that the customer can remove or place that tells you what the physical color is. Otherwise, on the reverse side, there's a small little tag that tells you what that foil physically is. The Edge FX is smart. It does have RFID tags on the foils, so it knows that you've installed a black foil and how much foil is roughly remaining on that cartridge. The cartridges are sold in either 15 meter, 45 meter, or 90 meter lengths. And some of the specialty ones are in 20 or 25 meter, but majority of them are 45 and 90. Most popular colors are available in 45 and 90. Standard colors are in 45. The least popular colors are available in 15. Or the super expensive ones, like the silver metal, are available in, I think it's 20 or 25. So slid the cartridge back in. The Edge will either automatically recognize that that color has been installed with the RFID chip, or it'll say, I have black foil, I need black foil, and you hit F1 to continue. If the job called for black, but you loaded blue, it would come up and say, hey, wait a minute, do you want to do this? Do you want to do a substitution? So if you want to change the color mid-print, you could go from black to a blue. And it would just say, okay, and it would get the firings and all the correct profiles to print that color on that material. So that's one of the benefits of the Edge FX, is that it is smart enough to know that. So then it just starts printing, and away that goes.
So did you say that these are no longer available to buy anymore?
Correct.
Yeah.
We're no longer being sold as new.
Okay.
They were actually discontinued January of this year.
Okay.
End of the day, the cost to produce them was going up by about 48%. That's due to labor costs here in the U.S. For all the different components and pieces. And that, our assembly plus our manufacturing plus the components that we're buying for plastic and aluminum, which this machine is all made of, every component just saw drastic price increases.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we decided that we just couldn't sell it for a 50% price increase over what it was.
Yeah. How much does it retail for, or did it retail for?
In the U.S., it was basically $17,000 U.S.
Yeah.
So it was not a cheap kit by any means, and that's just the printer. The plotter was an additional $5,000 to $10,000 U.S. So $5,000 for the basic plotter, $10,000 for the high-end Envision plotter.
And the cutter?
Yeah, the plotter is the cutter.
That's the cutter. Okay.
Yep. Sorry, we use the term plotter cutter. Same thing over here.
Okay.
And then the winder system, that's an additional, I can get you the exact price, but I think it's like $4,000 US.
Wow.
For that winder system. We also have a winder system for the Envision plotter, and that's like $8,000. And it's a whole stand that the plotter sits on.
It's a big chunk of change, and I guess some of the solvent machines are that kind of money, right?
Yes. Yeah. And there's a lot of competition for them. I mean, these machines, originally came out in 1994, the original Edge 1, and they were the sign maker's kit. I mean, that was what was available. Yeah. It wasn't until the Mamaki JV3 that we started getting any competition into this space.
Yeah.
And those machines actually started cutting into our 4-color process printing.
Yeah.
So this machine prints just under a US foot. It's 11.8 inches. So it's a small piece. It's only 15 inches material. But people used to do full vehicle wraps with this device.
Wow.
I personally wrapped a Sprinter van with it. People have done, helicopters with it, airplanes, billboards. They were back in the day. That's what you did. because before that you were hand painting, or really large stuff that was not available to a general sign shop. But as the years gone on, we've increased the resolution, we've increased the speed, we've added colors, we've added foils, and it's still a viable machine today. In fact, I still see customers that have the original Edge 1 from the 90s, still working, still printing, still functioning.
Yeah, that's not going to happen with inkjet.
No. What do you got? 3 years, best case, or 5 years?
Yeah, 5 years.
Long term, that's usually the lifespan of most inkjets these days.
Yeah.
So, yeah, an Edge, we still see them running 30 years later. No joke. Edge FX was introduced in 2005, and then we've had several different versions of it throughout the years with minor updates to it, but the same basic engine and chassis is there. And we're still going to support the equipment for at least another 7 years. So the Edge FX, the GSX plotter cutter, the GS15 cutter, and the Envision 375 will all have additional 7 years of support for products and service components available to them.
Yeah.
So right now, the Edge 2, which we discontinued back in 2005 when the Edge FX came out, that still makes up about 30% of our foil business.
Right.
So, 2005, a long time ago,
Yeah.
17 years ago, it still makes up a large portion of our business. So we try to keep them running as long as we can.
Yeah.
Our model always was to sell the equipment to feed the aftermarket sales.
Yeah.
So vinyl and foil and get the software sales, really.
Yeah.
We do have around 19,000 of these units worldwide. So there's quite a few of them out there. And then the plotters is way more than that. Just the Envisions alone, we've got, I think it was 28,000 of those out there. Omega Software seats, it's in the UK, I don't know what those numbers are. Spandex should have those. But, I mean, we're well into 230,000 at least just here in the US. So, I mean, there's a lot of software out there.
Yeah.
And the other thing is Gerber customers are very, very loyal. When we come out with new software, they buy the upgrades. It's really just the smaller, shops that don't buy the upgrades, run across those when they usually upgrade when their computer dies or when the Microsoft doesn't update and breaks their computer.
Yeah. And in terms of hardware fix, is this an on-site fix or is it a swap out device?
Both actually. In the UK, I believe they did most of it on site.
Yeah.
And then if it needed something like a print head, they'd bring it back to the Spandex office in Bristol to do a factory replacement of the print head.
Okay.
But, clutches, springs, gears, belts, the drive system, all that stuff could be fixed in the field. The LCD display, the foil motors, the shocks, those things, even customers can replace them.
Right.
They're fairly easy to do.
Yeah.
A lot of them don't like touching anything, so, then an engineer gets involved, but most of the time customers could physically do it if they had any mechanical capabilities.
Yeah.
This is the black bar that I was talking about in the print options. It prints before the job.
Yeah.
It'll actually print this bar as well as information about the job. It actually does not use any more material than not printing the bar. We physically use that space to warm up the print head and lead into the foil and vinyl mating together. So we've actually turned that on. We don't expect this to print very well because it is the print head warming up and coming into sync with the vinyl and foil. So it does help reduce dust on the actual prints because it traps anything that was in the beginning of the job in this area rather than in the customer's job and what they physically wanted to do. So some customers, when they get the new software, they complain that it's printing a colored bar in the beginning of their job. It's wasting their material. It's actually not.
Yeah.
We can actually draw marks on the print and print it with it and without it and show them it's using the same amount of space. They just didn't realize it was using that space before.
Yeah.
So that's that bar there, and you probably can't see it very well. There's a little target there. That's the registration target.
Yeah.
It's just a crosshair that you line up with that bomb site to do the print to cut. So that's the Edge FX. printer, and let's see. This is the Envision plotter. This is the high-speed, high-performance one. This is on the winder stand, so normally all this aluminum you see under it does not come with it. This is the additional stand that you can buy. It is just this device here. It does cut at 36 inches per minute, so it is blazing fast. It's almost scary how fast it is at times. And it all depends on what it's cutting, how big it's cutting. But it's just a little carriage, it goes across, drag knife, fairly standard, nothing too crazy there. This one does have the auto alignment for print to cut, so you can do a calibration, and then it sets up the home position of the edge in the plotter to determine where the targets are located on the job. So that's the Envision.
Is there only one target for each job, or does it continually target?
Yep.
No, it's just one.
One target.
Yeah.
Yep. The reason for that is because we have the tractor feed, we know how it's going to feed through the machine. We don't have to worry about it skewing or going off track.
Yeah.
And once we know where that first home position is, we know exactly where it's going to go throughout the job.
Yeah.
We can actually cut 50 yards of material straight through without any tracking issues.
Wow.
So that's another big selling point for the Gerber products, because last time I checked, Suma was the only one that would say they could do anything more than 20 feet. And I think their spec now is like 25 feet is the most that they'll do on a Suma for tracking.
Yeah.
Now, most customers won't run 50 yards through a machine at once, just because that's a lot of material to deal with unless you have the winders. Most customers will do, 3 to 9 yards at a time, 3 to 9 meters at a time, rather.
Yeah.
That's fairly standard. So that's the edge, the pliers. At least you have an idea of what they look like.
Yeah.
Just as a reference, this is a standard table here in the US. This is the edge on one side, the plotter on the other side, and a stand with the software. It all fits on one little table. That's how most customers have their equipment set up.
Yeah.
The edge dumps out to the left, and in this picture, the Envision dumps out to the right. And then you've got the foils. We have a little caddy here, just a display piece for a trade show, but pretty simple. A standard bit of kit, nothing too complicated. Doesn't take up a whole lot of space. You don't need a network connection and a network on it. We just a direct connect Ethernet cable from the edge to the PC. So very simple, easy setup. The stuff that you can do with an edge is really, crazy in the amount of different things and applications. Let's see, application. I'll just show you some of the stuff you can do. So this is a lacrosse helmet. The yellow G was printed on the edge. The stripes on the top was printed on the edge. And that's fairly standard application for an edge, is doing helmet decals, whether it's for American football, lacrosse, hockey, baseball, cricket. The edge is a great bit of kit for that because the materials are super durable. They can withstand the pounding and the hitting of those forces that are in there, as well as motorsports. If you guys watch F1 at all, F1 racing? Both McLaren and Williams have edges and print on them for their cars and their parts and components. Some of the McLaren cars themselves, the production cars for the public, have edge decals on them for their part numbers and safety and warning markers on them. The Williams cars, the F1 cars, have a whole bunch of decals on them. A lot of the internal components are labeled with Gerber stickers for their internal parts sourcing and stuff. And then we'll see some of the more interesting stuff. So this is printed on holographic material. This is a bubble type material just with black printing on it. This was for Alaska. This was a reflective sign. So here in the States, all of the police, fire, ambulance, rescue, all of their equipment is printed on a Gerber Edge on reflective vinyl. One of the reasons for that is that the Gerber Edge has transparent foils, so we can print onto reflective and maintain the reflectivity of the vinyl with our printing on top of it.
Yeah.
Whereas with inkjet, you print a black on top of the reflective, it's going to block it out. It won't have the reflectivity. Or you print a cobalt blue, it's going to block out that reflectivity. It won't reflect back as intense as cut vinyl does. Whereas an edge print, even the blue or the orange will reflect back at the same intensity.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of QR codes, sequential numbering, variable data, all that stuff is built into the Omega software and is very easy to do quickly and with variable data, just simple text files or with sequential numbering. This is actually for a drive-through, so there's a red button that goes through it. This is a silver metallic material with just a black print on top of it. Super, super easy, simple job. This was actually for a company here in the States called In-N-Out Burger, and there was actually 180,000 of these decals produced to go to all the different drive-thrus here in the U.S. This was actually a job from Williams. This is the kind of stuff that they do internally and some of the decals that are going on some of the legacy cars for their history when they redo stuff or go to special events. So, just real simple stuff. More of the same kind of things. Trash cans, recycling, bins, all that kind of stuff. We have materials that are super aggressive adhesive, so they'll stick to metals and plastics that normal vinyl doesn't stick to. We call it permagrip. These are rescue vehicles, so this is all done on reflective. This is a huge roll-up door. On reflective, you can see what it looks like when it's in the dark, shining a light on it. So there's a full rescue vehicle here in the U.S. All that stuff is either cut reflective blue vinyl or it is a logo printed on the Gerber Edge. And again, because we can do long runs, it's not an issue to do something this large and not have any issues with tracking or skewing. There's more of a night shot with reflectivity on it. This was a rental truck, so just the information, general basic caution warning type stuff. You can see that on the dash of the vehicle. Again, we have materials that will stick to those products, low energy plastics. It's not going to come off. Whereas you use regular vinyl, that would peel off of that dash or curl up pretty easily. So just some different stuff that people have done. This was for a market. They're doing these little labels that were going in front of the food that they're selling. This is actually in Germany. This was a hotel. They used the gold metal foil, and they did cut everything out, but it was all done in a metallic reflective, which you're not doing on an inkjet. Elevator signs, QR codes. This one had a doming resin on top of it. So this is for a queue, and it's just those little markings on top of it. That was for a Hoover vacuum, so UL registered product that has to meet standards for UL, safety information, serial numbers, voltage, do a ton of that kind of work for the Gerber Edge. Vehicle graphics, product identification, product serial numbers, that kind of thing. Racing decals for motocross, F1, regular kit cars, all that kind of stuff. Printing with silver metal. So these are just some of the stuff that the Gerber Edge produces and why it's still used today and so much.
Yeah.
We can print on holographic material. We can print white. So this is white actually printed over holographic. So that can show you how thick our white actually is and the opacity of it. We can block out holographic vinyl with the printed white, which inkjets still can't do that today. They can barely print over a color. So yeah, a lot of different stuff. Do you guys have any questions on any of the Gerber materials or the products or the software?
It's a great introduction, and we need to. I think we need to get to spandex and have a play.
Yep, I would recommend downloading the Omega 8 software.
Yeah.
And at least installing it in demo mode on your systems.
Yeah.
So again, if you remember from the beginning, gspinc.com.
Yeah.
Brings you to the Gerber Technology, or gerbertechnology.com/sign-graphics. Because that rolls off the tongue so well.
Yeah, and in the software you can import just your clip art or any images that you want.
Any images.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can either open or import. We can bring in AI, EPS, PDF, CMX, CDR,
JPEG.
PostScript files, DXF files, DWG,
Wow.
TIFFs, bitmaps, JPEGs. These are all the different file formats that are supported in there. So a lot of them that you guys probably don't work with too often, but the standard ones for out of Adobe and Corel are supported.
Yeah.
We can also export out as AI, EPS, PDF, all those formats, TIFF, bitmap, JPEG, and all that kind of stuff. You can design in Omega and export out to an inkjet. Do you guys use Onyx at all?
Not yet.
Software?
Well,
Okay.
we are about to.
Okay.
We're all familiar with
We
it.
do have an option
Yeah.
to export to the Onyx hot folders.
Yeah.
So that allows you to create templates basically to go directly to a specific Onyx hot folder and what settings you want to have. If you want to have unique names, if you want to use cut options. So we can go and choose the cutter path shape name or the cutter path name, whether it's filled or stroked. So those are all settings Onyx cares about when you're doing automated workflows. So you can literally design something in Omega, dump it out to an Onyx hot folder. Onyx will recognize that a file was dropped into it. It'll then open up that file, process it, and send it to the printer without the user doing anything. So that's some really cool, powerful stuff there. We can also export stuff out to Roland and Rasterlink. They use a specific color name. So, and it can be either stroked or filled, depending on what you want to use for designs there. And we can save those as templates. So you don't have to remember which one is for which device, whether you're going to an Epson, you're going to a Roland, you're going to a Graphtec, you're going to a Mamaki, whatever it may be. We've got options to set that up. So instead of going file, save as, choosing EPS file, going to a directory, saving it on the network, choosing what kind of cutter path to use, you can just export to hot folder and you can set up presets. It makes it really quick and easy.
And it's always solid colors, presumably, and it's always the colors the foils that you've got on the right hand side.
For the Gerber Edge,
yes.
If you can design in process.
Yeah.
So you can go and choose different colors there.
Yeah.
You can also do gradients.
Yeah.
So we could use it as spot gradients if we wanted to.
Yeah.
We can add in multiple gradients, different fade points, whatever color you wanted to use.
Yeah.
So you can do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You can bring in images.
Yeah.
Bitmaps, TIFFs, JPEGs, and we can output those to the Gerber Edge. It would print that with 4-color process.
Yeah.
So yellow, magenta, cyan, and black.
Black. Yeah.
So it gets to be a bit expensive. You
Yeah.
get 4 foils. Most customers, unless they need a specialty material, would use inkjet for that job.
Yeah.
But if you need to print on clear, or you need to use white or a silver metallic, or match a specific color, you may want an image with graphics on top of it.
Yeah.
Got one. The other place that the Edge is used a lot of is in aircraft, because we can print on polycarbonate Lexan. And so we do a ton of aircraft decals and labels. So you deal with KLM at all, British Airways, Air France, Delta, United, American Airlines. You'll see all these placards on the plane. Those are all printed on a Gerber Edge. Both Boeing and Airbus have multiple edges at their locations, and all the factory placards on the inside of the plane is done on a Gerber Edge. And that's because we meet the requirements for flammability and durability.
Yeah.
So the next time you get on a plane, look at a decal, you know it's a Gerber product 99% of the time.
Cool.
I was looking for a 4-color process. The other thing, we can print fluorescent colors in the metallics. Just as a sample, here's a shiny silver. And we printed a transparent green, transparent blue. So that then creates metallic green, metallic blue.
Yeah. So that's
really trick stuff there.
So that's two foils presumably. You've got the metallic, and then you've over the top with the transparent.
Correct.
One. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 foils. So the silver metal and then the transparent color.
Yeah.
We can also print fluorescent colors. This doesn't translate real well, but that is a very bright yellow, green, and orange fluorescent.
Yeah. Similar
to your fluorescent vinyls. I have an image here.
And a lot of customers use it for signage outside, right?
Yeah. Because all of the Gerber materials are outdoor durable. Most of the Gerber materials are outdoor durable.
Yeah.
3 to 5 years, depending on the product.
Yeah.
So the foils, like black foil, is outdoor durable for up to 5 years, whereas white is 3 years. The only one that's not is pink, and that one's only outdoor durable for 2 years.
Right. Okay.
But we can print holographic. We can print on holographic. There's a helicopter that I wrapped. That's all edge graphics, 15 inches at a time. Did the bottom skirt, the top skirt, and the actual band.
Wow.
Motocross graphics, huge in that area. Safety signage, helmets again. Did a lot of that stuff. This is actually no, that's not a good example. Thought I had a color job here I could show you. I've saved it. This directory. I guess not. Oh, this is another good one to show. This is a black vinyl printing with our 4 different whites. So we have a Arctic white that really covers up the black, and then our regular white, you can see this one's kind of a dingy gray, and then our flood coat white, which is a pure white over it. But that's how opaque our black or white foil is.
Yeah.
Spraying over black. We also have a transparent white if you do want a gray, or you want to lighten or darken a color.
Yeah.
So a lot of unique stuff that can be done with the software. If you guys wouldn't mind, shoot me an email with your individual emails. It's adam.foster@gerbertechnology.com. You guys send an info to your, or email to your, was it info@Rockwell?
Yeah, so we've all got access to that, but
Okay.
So that's probably the best place to send it, because all the guys can then see it.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, if you just, do you guys always send from that one as well?
Correct.
Or do you send from personal?
Correct.
Okay.
From the info.
Okay.
I mean, the guys do have individual ones, but we're kind of sharing everything, so it all comes into the same inbox anyway.
Okay. If you could just shoot me an email with everybody's names, just so I know who everybody is, and your contact info in case you call me.
Yeah.
I know who you are, and I'll go, who's this from the UK? I don't know that.
Yeah.
Especially right now with the transition of spandex losing all its text, I'm getting a lot of customers calling me directly.
Okay.
And so that's been kind of problematic because I can't really help them too much, especially with the time difference.
Yeah.
And then, they're upset that I don't return their call at 2 a.m. my time.
Yeah. We wouldn't do that either.
East Coast, I do try to respond to all emails by this time, right now, it'd be the end of your day.
Yeah.
So
That's
if you
cool.
do have any
Hopefully we
questions-
can take some of that pain away
Yeah,
eventually.
yeah, hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah.
The installs and upgrades, generally not too complicated, not too involved, but most customers don't want to do it themselves. They want their hands held.
Okay. Time will tell.
Yes. And if you do have any problems or questions, would like further demonstration on how the software works, feel free to reach out. Again, I do recommend going to our e-service and downloading the Omega software and just go through the install, let it run in demo mode. And that way, at least you have the software. You can learn how to use the pieces and parts of it. The only thing that you don't have in demo mode is the ability to output.